on today's episode of Wounds, Wisdom, and the Word.
You know, there's been times where the best thing in the world my wife could do for me when I'm struggling is to smile at me. Mm-hmm. And in that smile, she may be smiling because she doesn't know what else to do, but that smile communicates, I'm here, I love you, I still kind of want to be around you.
Yeah.
You know.
Wounds, wisdom, and the Word. Wounds, wisdom, and the Word.
Now here are your hosts, Jamie and Doug.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Wounds, Wisdom, and the Word. This is Doug, and
I'm Jamie.
Has Jamie here with us, my fearless co-host.
Co-host for sure, fearless to be determined.
But it is a beautiful April day, April 1st. You know, I haven't tried to fool anybody yet, but maybe this episode won't be jokes on you. You know, everything we've talked about up to this point in this podcast, Jamie, we've talked about an individual having a mental health issue, right? We talked a lot about trauma and all those things that brings along with it. And today, you know, I kind of wanted to shift gears. We just finished the series talking about being stuck, okay? So that's one thing, but a lot of times you may not be the one with the mental health issue, but you may have a loved one or see a coworker, or you may be the person that notices someone else is struggling, and what do you do, right? You had brought up before the idea about being a mechanic or being, you know, an expert. And an expert, you know, a mechanic, I had to put a motor in a vehicle recently, and they will charge you to diagnose. Mm-hmm. And that money doesn't fix anything, you know, because they have the ability to diagnose and fix. So, of course, we can't fix other people and their problems, but we can try to help them and support them. So I guess the idea for today's episode is, how do you help somebody who's struggling? And, you know, and I guess to kind of put my cart completely in front of my horse, a lot of times the best thing you can do, maybe to try to help somebody, and you know, I've seen people who's like, well, I don't understand. You know, I talked to a gentleman one time, and he's like, you know, when I go through struggles, and you know, I just try to like put those things in my mind and go on. And you know, but he told me he shared some of his wife's story, and you know, physical assault, sexual assaults, and all these things. And he's like, I just try to put it in my mind. I don't know why she can't. And I'm like, well, just because it works that way for you does not mean that's automatically going to work. You know, you don't know what it's like inside somebody else's skull. And I don't have to know what it's like to be Jamie to support Jamie and try to help Jamie. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the overarching goal of today's podcast. I hope we get there.
I think we will.
Yeah. But, you know, and that's the thing. A lot of times, sometimes, you know, maybe men, if a man has a woman in his life that has a mental health problem, you know, a lot of times we want to be fixers. Mm-hmm. Women can be fixers too. I'm married to one, but don't tell her. But, you know, a lot of times maybe the best thing you can do is not fix it. You can't fix it. But I tell you, there's something that when you're struggling and you're going through something, for someone just to look at you and say, you know, there's been times where the best thing in the world my wife could do for me when I'm struggling is to smile at me. Mm-hmm. And just, you know, and in that smile, she may be smiling because she doesn't know what else to do, but that smile communicates, I'm here, I love you, I still kind of want to be around you.
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes more than others. Yeah.
I'm willing to tolerate you. But, you know, she can't fix it. Mm-mm. And the thing is, like, whatever I'm going through at the moment may not be caused by her. It may be caused by, and sometimes I don't even know what's caused by. Mm-hmm. But something as simple as just sitting there and just smiling at me communicates so much. And Michael Whitworth wrote a book one time on grief. He had lost a father and then lost a 2-year-old son pretty close back to back. And he wrote a book on grief, and he said, I give you permission to say 2 things at the funeral home. I'm sorry and I love you. Mm-hmm. And beyond that, you don't need to say anything. Sometimes your presence is all that it takes to help somebody. So we get distraught. Oh, I need to do something. I need to say something. I need to No. You think about Job. The best thing Job's friends did for him was sit in the dirt with him for 7 days.
Yep.
And didn't say a word. It just went downhill from there. Once they opened their mouth. So if you just watch the episode here and click off, like that's maybe, I don't know, get my cart completely in front of my horse. But sometimes just your presence and, just a simple smile might be the thing to reaffirm, you're not crazy or you're not nuts or I still see you, I still value you. I mean, whatever it is for the person, but it doesn't have to be this big elaborate thing.
Well, and I'll say, here's a little piece of advice, which, by the way, I do not give advice very frequently. But this is a piece of advice, right? So empathy is all about putting yourself in that person's shoes. If you're the one standing at the front of the funeral home, greeting everybody that comes in because it's your loved one who has passed away, what's the one thing that you want most of all in that moment? And this is the average person, okay? Yeah. We know there are always extenuating circumstances where we wouldn't want the loved one back because ultimately they were suffering while they were on this earth, right? But in the case of a 2-year-old child, what do you think that man really wanted? Yeah. Well, he wanted his son back. He wanted his child back, right? You can't give that to them. Yeah. You can't, right? God has the ability to do that, but we know in our day and time that doesn't happen, right? Jesus is no longer on this earth, so those miracles do not happen right now.
Didn't happen for David.
Nope. And the truth is, the one thing, when you ask that person, is there anything I can do for you? You are so well-intentioned because what you're really offering is, I want to give you comfort, right? I want to reach out to you in some kind of way. That is very genuine for most people. But the one thing that person wants the most, you can't give them.
Right.
And there's nothing else on their mind in that moment.
And they're never going to look at you and say, well, I'd like a chicken sandwich.
No.
I mean,
hey, can you run down the corner? I really think I'd like to have one of those mocha drinks from the coffee shop down there. I mean, every once in a while, right? I mean. But
if a person actually wants that, they're probably going to tell you. They're not going to be like, is anything I can do for you? I got some drawers at home that need to be folded. Like, yeah, I mean, no, they're not going to say that.
No. And the thing is, like, it's not about the offer, again, very sincere, very genuine, right? And maybe what you do is you look at them and you say, let me know if there's something that I can help you with, right? Let me know if you need somebody to go home and fold your laundry. Let me know if you need somebody to go to the store. Yeah. Those are things I know I can do for you. Yeah. Those are services. That's service work. That's how I can serve you in this moment. Yeah. I know what you really need I can't give you. Yeah. Beyond my presence, my comfort, and my willingness to be here for you. Yeah. Right? So that's it. Hopefully that helps give some perspective.
And depending on the situation, you can say whatever to them. They may not even be able to process, the whole, I want to come fold towels and, all that is very valid. But that may be something for next week, and you just show up, and they're sitting there in their recliner staring off into space, and, they look awkward, but you just like, go sit down. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, and we all know those people in our lives that are resistant to servitude and service sometimes. I'll tell you, I just don't give them an option. I got a good friend going through some things, and, she got some not real bad news, but some very unpleasant news and was kind of in some pain. And I just texted her and was like, hey, I'm bringing you dinner on Wednesday night. Yeah. I'll text you on Wednesday and let you know what time I'm going to be there. Or if there's a good time for me to come, let me know. Yeah. By the way, if your family has any food allergies, now's the time to tell me that. There was no opportunity for her to push back.
Yeah.
And I didn't care if I walked that food in the house and she just threw it right in the trash. That was her business,
Right.
right? But I knew she needed, like, I knew that would be helpful to her in that moment.
Right.
There was nothing else I could do to help with the news or to help with the situation.
Right.
But if she's in pain and she got a family to take care of, I know what that feels like as a woman,
Yeah.
right? You know what being in a hard place feels like as a man. So think of it from that perspective.
Yeah.
If I was in that, what would I really need? And then just go do it.
Yeah.
I mean, within reason, of course.
Right.
We know sometimes things get out of hand, but so keep it between the lines, kind of
Out of the ditch.
out of the ditch. We don't want to be. We don't want to be in a ditch.
So this next part, I don't know that I want this to be or can be a comprehensive list, but you know, I've heard people say, "Well, I just don't understand." Okay, and I guess in this next section, what I want to try to do is kind of maybe give some ideas of what this may look like,
Yeah.
because a lot of times something's going on with somebody, and it may look like, you know, depression. Okay, let's just start there with that one. Depression, a lot of times, I tell people, depression is not, I'm tired, or I don't want to do the bills or the laundry or okay. Depression gets to the point where I can't even go do things I want to do. Mm-hmm. There have been days where I literally could not get out of my office chair. Mm-hmm. And kind of one of the things that led me to dive off deeper into the trauma work that me and you did and the brain spotting was I had a Monday morning and I literally could not even get myself up and go to the shop, which I love to do. You know, if somebody stroke me a check and pay me every week and say, I don't care what you do, I'm in the shop. You know, I love doing that. 50 bajillion things that I need to be doing right now. But I couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
So what may appear to you as being lazy, or, you know, I just don't know why they just want to lay in the bed all day. Well, the thing is, maybe they don't want to lay in the bed all day either. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe there's more to it than that. And especially somebody who, you know, you've known them for a long time and they always get up. You know, we've got a whole crew that goes to Dairy Queen every morning at probably 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever,
Yep.
and drinks coffee and yada, yada, yada. Well, if that person all of a sudden stops going and stops taking a shower and stops, you know, why are you being lazy for, Fred? Well, maybe Fred ain't being lazy. Maybe there's something else going on there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, go back to the whole fix-it thing. A lot of times with these issues, you know, you be like, oh, what's wrong? Why are you depressed? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. If I knew that, I wouldn't be depressed.
If I had that kind of knowledge and insight.
Why don't you just fix it? Well, if I could fix it, it wouldn't be broke. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just, you know. So a lot of times just understanding that you may not understand will give you the ability to have enough open mind to say, okay, this is where they are. And I may not agree with them laying in the bed all day, and I may not agree with, you know, X, Y, Z. But the Bible says there's a way unto man that seems right, but the end result is death. Okay, and that applies to a sinful context. But it also applies to, you know, maybe an out-of-place behavior.
Sure.
If this person has got up every day for 40 years and went to Dairy Queen at 6 o'clock in the morning to drink coffee, and now they don't, mm-hmm. Why don't they?
Yep.
There's a reason. So sometimes I feel like it's where maybe we as outsiders get in trouble is our brains are really good at telling a story.
Oh, yeah. Narrative is what we call that. You write a narrative about
You write a narrative. Oh, well, Fred's lazy. Mm-hmm. Well, no. Fred lost his wife, you know, 6-8 months ago, and Fred is, you know, extraordinarily depressed. You know, Fred's not lazy.
Nope. Struggling.
Struggling.
Yep.
Another one is anxiety or panic. I think I've shared this before on the podcast, but that was the wrong button. Job 4:12 describes a panic attack, and I'll tell you the parts of it that is. Now, a word was brought to me stealthily, my ear received the whisper of it. So a lot of times panic attacks are brought on by thoughts.
Intrusive thoughts.
Somebody says something, or what if this, or, you know, let's say a person that's a war veteran, it's 4th of July, and they're laying in bed, and some kids decide they want to shoot off fireworks at midnight, and he's awoken out of his sleep with a bang, you know, or something slides in that starts it. Amid thoughts from visions of the night, when deep sleep falls on men, dread came upon me. I can tell you when a panic attack's going to come, because that dread, and if you've never experienced it, I don't really know how to describe it to you.
Well, the thing to remember is that all of these things that we have talked about or will talk about, they show up differently in different people. And that goes for panic attacks too.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody literally sitting next to you could be just
On fire.
on fire on the inside. But what you're seeing on the outside, it's like a duck.
Yeah.
Right? When they're going across that water, they look just as calm and serene. There might be this tiny little ripple in front of their body, but underneath that water, they're like, you know, because that's what's moving them. Well, that happens with panic and anxiety too.
Yeah.
You know, all of these things show up in different people, you know, and so you know what it feels like because it's your body.
Yeah.
You can feel it coming on. That's true with a lot of us, I think.
Yeah. And some people, when, especially when they're starting out in their journey, they may not know it, but then you can get to recognizing it. Like,
Yep. There is typically a pattern.
well, and it was like Sunday. Sunday we were in a rush, and I didn't have a chance to take all my normal medicine because if I don't eat, it'll make me sick. So I took some of it. And anyway, by the time we got done, they had a fellowship meal in this room that we're sitting right here. And I could tell, like, everybody's talking and laughing and having a good time. And I'm just like, I can't really do this. And I'm standing outside, and anyway, I get something to eat and whatever, but I can tell, like, I don't know what it is about my left arm, but I start getting an ache in my left arm that's running from my elbow up, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. And nobody did anything. Nobody said anything.
Yep.
And, you know, it was like, oh, I know where that's not a muscle ache.
Nope.
That's something else. And, of course, I couldn't get away. And then we invited half the church over to my house that afternoon. But I digress.
Because misery loves company.
No, I mean,
does.
it was good. I mean, nobody was trying to, like, sabotage me.
Yeah.
But, like, I could tell this is coming.
Yep.
And, you know, it was like, you know, what happened? And I was like, I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I just know that pain, like, it literally will run from the side of my neck, out of my neck, and then it picks back up, you know, down in here. And it just, like, when that starts throbbing, you know, your body's like, I'm trying to sound the drum here. You need to back up. But dread came upon me, trembling, which made all my bones shake. Yep. My, you know, the little things that you wind up, the little teeth that's got the feet on it. My jaw will do that. The spirit glided past my face. The hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still. But I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was silence. Then I heard a voice. Can mortal man be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his maker? He's having a panic attack, thinking about, oh my gosh, what if I'm not, you know, I can't be perfect. Like, this is going on. I don't know why this is going on, but, like, who can really be right? And what if I never get out of this? And, you know, so, and you could say, well, you just shouldn't have that thought. Well, maybe you shouldn't, but I shouldn't be fat either. I mean, I am. Like, it just, gas shouldn't be $4 a gallon. It is. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can what if it all day long. So, you know, this person that, you know, a panic attack is kind of something in the moment and you write it out. Anxiety is kind of a different, I guess, different deal. Anxiety is more long-term. Panic is more in the moment, on fire.
Yeah.
I would say, but
Well, and often one leads to the other.
oh, absolutely.
Like anxiety can absolutely lead into a panic attack,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Or a momentary panic attack that can actually ambush a person
Right.
can then lead, when that subsides, that can then lead into anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're completely on edge for an extended period of time.
Well, and you know, you've seen people like maybe you just walk up in the gas station or whatever, and they're like, they just jump.
Yep.
And there's a reason for that. I won't tell that story, but there's Annetta has a coworker, and I'm like, it's either got to be the husband or the family of origin. It's either the foo or the husband, but this woman's on fire.
Yep.
Walks around like she's on fire. Has to be.
Well, and I always find it interesting when I meet those people, right? Because I'd say on an average basis, I'm like polar opposite of that, right? Now, I have my moments. I'm human.
I don't know how you're not sucking your thumb by the end of the week, knee deep in everybody else's problems going.
I mean, there's been an urge. I mean, I was walking through the house last night, and mine is very internalized, right? And it's the best way I can describe it is an unsettled feeling. My mind starts pulling me in 100 different directions, but I don't follow any of them, right? And it's kind of like that duck thing. But I was walking through the house last night.
Maybe that needs to be the episode title, Be Nicer to Ducks.
Be nicer to consider the duck.
And then my mind went to
like
the
that.
Mighty Ducks.
The Mighty Ducks, yep.
Sorry, squirrel.
All good. Squirrels and ducks. I mean, maybe we just talk about a wildlife episode. But no, I was walking through the house and like Adam picked up on it. And he asked me 3 different times. He's like, "Are you okay? Is something wrong? Like, everything all right?" And like I couldn't really say anything. And I was actually getting ready to leave the house on a walk. And so I just told him, I was like, "I'm going for a walk." He goes, and he had this look on his face like, "You coming back?" No, I'm just kidding. I was just kidding. But he was like, "Okay." And, so I went on my walk, got back to the house, and, he said, "All right, I'm going to ask you again. You all right?" And I was like, No, I'm not.
Yeah.
And, so I just, kind of told him what was going on. And he's like, "I get it." And the walk helped, right? It didn't clear it up. But by the time I got back to the house,
You could talk about it, and you
I
couldn't
could.
talk about it before.
correct. And then I was able to better regulate and manage myself, right? And I think for me, and this could be true for some people out there, the scariest part is feeling like I can't manage myself, right? I would not label myself as a control freak. I'm just not.
Yeah.
But if I don't feel like I am in a good place to be okay myself, there's problems,
Yeah.
right? And so that's actually a really good point too when you think about helping other people. If you ain't okay, you don't need to be diving into anybody's pit.
You don't have any bandwidth
You don't have any bandwidth.
or margin or bear or
No.
whatever.
No. And these friends who went and sat with Job in the dirt, well, maybe for that first 7 days that they sat there, they were totally cool with it. But then they got tired of sitting there. Or they decided it was time for them to talk about their stuff or to let their stuff come to the surface. What they should have done was just got up and left.
Yeah, that would have been much more helpful.
Yes. And be like, "Job, man, I got to check out. I'll try to come back and check in with you in a couple days."
Because you can't give what you ain't got.
Nope.
And if you try to give what you don't have,
You end up taking a lot of times.
and you're taking from the people that you love and yourself, and you're taking it out on other people.
You're trying to take it from somebody that also don't have it to give.
Yeah.
And like that goes nowhere. It goes nowhere.
Yeah. So, you know, if somebody's, you know, maybe constantly on edge, or, you know, if they're not, you know, you, like I say, once again, you've seen this person, you know how they normally react, and they're, you know, the eyes are darting around, or they're like, look like they're in a sweat, and, you know, what's wrong with you? You know, and they're not going to be able to tell you, probably.
Yep.
So, you know, breathe, maybe quit talking.
Yep.
You know, sit with them. I mean, those kind of things. If you don't hear anything else, a lot of times it's simpler than what you think. What they need is probably less involved and simpler than what you think. You think about Jesus sitting in the Garden of Gethsemane, praying, literally sweating. You know, I don't know what his blood pressure was right then, but the reason he sweat drops of blood is because literally his body was under so much pressure that the little microscopic capillaries underneath his skin began to burst. That's where the blood was coming from. So what was his blood pressure? 200 over, I mean, no telling.
Yep.
But like, he had those three dudes with him, and he didn't ask them, come here and, you know, wipe my tears. He didn't ask them, just sit over there, be in my presence. And, you know, even though they couldn't stay awake, even, you know, he was the Son of God, and he needed people. Okay, so what do you think you are? You think you're better than him? Like, you think you don't need people because, you know, I don't want to burden anybody with my problems. Well, sometimes the best thing you can do to help somebody else or help yourself is to help somebody else and get the focus off you for a minute. You know, I mean, it just, I don't know. It just so many times we just like, we just got to push away and stay away. ADHD and burnout, that's another one. I don't know necessarily how I would categorize those together, but like the inability to focus, you know. And sometimes
they have that in common.
Do I?
Right? They do have that in common. Right?
Well, they present similarly. And a lot of times, you know, I've heard stories over and over again where people, you know, they're not paying attention, but they'll rattle off the right answers. You know, the way they listen is doodling or doing something, you know, like, so like I say, just because you don't get it doesn't mean it's not very real for them.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. You had mentioned empathy versus sympathy earlier. There's a good video. I may try to find it and link it in the show notes, where it's a little animated deal, but it's from Brene Brown, where sympathy is the dude standing at the top of the hole looking down on the guy and said, boy, I hate that for you. I feel sorry for you. And the empathy was crawling down in the hole, you know, sitting down in the dirt with. And, you know, I mentioned this, I think Sunday morning, that what is Psalm 23 if Psalm 23 isn't God coming and sitting down in your mess with you?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and all the comfort that he brings. You know, he prepares a table in the midst of my enemies. It's not that he removes the enemies. It's not that he removes you away from the enemies.
He puts you right in front of them.
Puts you right in front of them, but it's like you can sit down there and you can eat, and it's okay. Why? Because of who's with you. And that's, you know, there are people that have that effect. They're just, you know, there's some people that, bless their heart, they just add chaos to everything. And there's other people that, like, they just sink it. They're like a heat sink. They just suck it up. You know, everything just kind of gets a little easier when they step in. And they may not be doing anything or saying anything, but just they're, you know, and I think parents are that way for kids a lot of times. The kid's scared and, you know, they cry out in the middle of the night or whatever. And mom and daddy comes, and they calm down. Why? Because somebody's there with me to help.
Well, a lot of that has to do, like, you know, if you want to get psychological with it, a lot of that has to do with attachment.
Yeah.
Right? And by the way, we do not outgrow attachment.
Yeah.
Right? We learn it from our parents and the people who take care of us when we're children, but as adults, we still have attachment needs. And the problem is when that is an unhealthy attachment or a lack of attachment at all, you know, but that calming presence that you're talking about, I mean, we get that from our spouses. We should, get that from our spouses, right? Just in the same way that children get it from their parents. Now, it's a different, right? It's much more reciprocal. You know, the parent role, you give, and you don't always get a lot back.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, their little arms around your neck telling them that they love you and that you're their most favorite person in the entire world, that makes a lot of it worth it, you know? Yeah. Even when they're adults and they're hugging you, going, Mama, I love you, like, yeah. But pause for the, you know, dramatic, anyway.
Who chopping onions in here?
Right? I don't know what that is all about. Must be allergies. But, you know, there is a reward there, but that's not, it's not reciprocal. We shouldn't expect as parents our children to fill our cups, right? Yeah. But that relationship, that adult relationship with a spouse, very different. It's reciprocal, right? It's I'm getting what I need from you and you're getting what you need from me. And that comes a lot of times in attachment, which is love. It's, you know, I'm there for you for whatever you need. You're there for me for whatever I need. And we're happy doing life, right? And that has a huge influence on all kinds of hormones and chemicals in our brain and all of the things. That's why, even just in these situations we're talking about, you know, the presence of another person. You know, those friends of Job's that sat with him, he obviously didn't have a romantic relationship with those people, but he knew they cared about him.
Right.
And just their presence there with him was comforting.
Well, and that's another thing I was going to bring up was, you know, a lot of times, sometimes to help somebody, you've got to burn some relational capital. And what I mean by that is, it's like, is it His Needs, Her Needs? It talks about the love bank.
Fall in love, stay in love.
Okay, well,
same author, Willard Hardley.
Okay,
Hardley.
And it's a marriage book, but the idea applies with any relationship, right? That a relationship, friendships, you know, people you meet at work, whatever. Everybody gets a bank account with you in your heart, technically. So, you know, the more you have positive experiences together, you make deposits. Okay. Well, when you need to go, you know, if you got a buddy at work and he's messing his job up, and you pull him to the side and said, hey, you're doing your job wrong. You may get us all killed. Stop it. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a big withdrawal. But you made plenty of deposits. You can withdraw some. Mm-hmm. And, well, I didn't like it, but I know he loves me, so maybe there's something to that. Mm-hmm. Right? I talked to a group of preachers one time about ministering to people with depression. And I was like, if you don't have that relationship built up beforehand, you may not be able to do everything you want to do directly. Mm-hmm. You may need to get another person that knows that person, mm-hmm. and go with them, or maybe help that person help them, you know, because a person who's struggling is a wounded animal. Yes. And, you know, you may have Rover for 20 years, and Rover knows and loves everybody in the family, but when he's hurting, mm-hmm. and he's not thinking straight, you might get bit. Yep. So I'm not saying you can't help somebody if you don't know them well enough, but you've got to be cognizant of how hard can I push? Mm-hmm. And even if you can push, you might not be able to push but once or twice. Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, you know, you're really talking about a sense of security, right, in whatever relationship that you're, you know, that we're talking about, coworker, friend, parishioner, yeah, you know, church member. Is parishioner the right word for us?
I mean, it means what it means.
Oh, okay, then. Yeah. Well, anyway, I just want to make sure I wasn't, you know, saying something I wasn't supposed to say. Congregation member, right? Close friend.
We got a deacon started talking about laity, and I mean, I know what he means. I mean, it's just, I'm not wearing no hat, though.
Right.
Except the ball cap.
Oh, anyway. But
you can send all your hate mail to Jamie at.
Yes. Give you my office address. But But yeah, like it's that security that exists in that relationship. And that is built on how many deposits you've made, right? So when you talk about burning the capital, it's, well, I've made enough deposits in my account with this person's bank that I am all in the black, right? And so I need to kind of challenge this person, because ultimately that's what you're doing. Right?
And it may be just something where, you walk in one day and it's like, listen, I know you're not good. I'm not going to ask you if you're good. I know you're not good. You've been trying to act like you've been good for like 6 months now.
Yep.
And we're not doing this.
But I see you.
I see you.
Yep.
And they may get mad, but they may also be the thing that they need to push them to get them over the edge to open up and come out of this.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's,
Especially when they can go off of the assumption, Doug loves me.
yeah.
I know he loves me because of all of these reasons, i.e. the deposits that he's made
Right.
in this account. I know that whatever, and what does Scripture say? Admonish one another in love,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's what you're doing there. You're loving that person enough to go to them and say, there's some stuff I'm concerned about, or I see your behavior, right? And I know you're trying to mask it. I know you're trying to hide it, and maybe you're trying to fake it till you make it. But like, let's talk.
Yeah. Let me help you. Another thing where you can help a lot of times, and this isn't right, and it's, but it's just the way of the world, is that the mental health system is, sometimes you need a degree to know what kind of degree you need or what kind of counselor you need or what kind of this you need, because, a psychologist can diagnose you, but they can't give you medicine and they can't actually treat, but yet a psychologist can treat you with medicine, but they generally won't talk to you for more than 5 minutes.
You mean a psychiatrist?
Yeah, whatever.
Said
See, I can't even keep it straight.
You said psychologist twice.
Oh, well, yeah, psychiatrist, yes. Psychologists can diagnose you, but can't treat you. A psychiatrist can treat you, but
They
probably
can
won't diagnose you.
They can diagnose.
They can,
give
but
you medicine.
They give you medicine,
it.
but they're only going to probably talk to you for 5 minutes at a time, if that.
Yep.
And, and then the therapist over here, which may be one of 15 kinds of therapists, and a lot of times if you are mentally struggling, you can't navigate the mental health system to get the help you need. And sometimes, I think I've told the story before on the podcast, but we had a gentleman one time wound up having schizophrenia. And like, it took us all day to get him somewhere. And then during this process, as we're riding in the car and everything, I wrote a couple pages worth of notes on a legal pad. So the psychiatric nurse comes in to do his eval, and she's like, can I wake him up? And I'm like, you can in a minute. You're talking to me first. And he had already we already did the eval before she woke him up. But I'll never forget this moment as long as I live. She looked at him and she said, do you ever see things or hear voices that other people don't hear? And he's like, how am I supposed to know? And I thought, that's what's wrong with the system right there. Because how is he supposed to? I figured out he was having hallucinations.
Okay.
But he didn't know that. How's he supposed to know what it's like outside of his own head and for everybody else? The
only way you get that, the only way a person like that gets a frame of reference is to be around a typical person. But that also, Doug, means that he had to be brave enough to look at you, to look at somebody else and go, do you see that right there?
Well, it wasn't even that. I had took a mental health first aid course. And during that training, there was one slide they put up that it was all related to psychosis stuff. And every one of those symptoms, like 30 things on this slide, every one of them. And he didn't even realize what I asked him when I asked him. But because of that training, I was able to recognize what was going on. And, because this guy, when you tried to talk to him, he would mumble and you couldn't hardly understand him. But if you called him on a cell phone and talked to him, he'd talk to you clear as a bell. And we were sitting in the truck by ourselves. And I said, when I talk to you, do you hear more voices than just mine? He said, yeah, but I kind of like it. And it was just normal to him.
Yeah.
like he thought. And why would he not think that?
Yeah.
Why would you not think that everybody else is no wonder he mumbled. He's talking through the crowd always, except the crowd's
In his head.
in his head. You know what I mean? And so, like, how is he supposed to figure out, hey, there's something going on different with me than everybody else? How's he? I mean, you can't walk up to somebody and be like, hey, can I get in your head for just a few minutes and let me check it out? I just want to test drive it a little bit.
Yeah.
What? I mean,
You'll probably take that one back to the lot. Just saying. No, I'm just kidding. Well, and I'll say this, like, there's a term called scope of practice, right? And if I can do anything with this information, it's to encourage, just reach out to somebody, right? Because what happens in a situation where the system works like it is supposed to work, okay? Whoever you reach out to should do an initial assessment, right? Either with a questionnaire, a phone call, consult, something of that nature, okay? If I figure out that I have a client who's called me and maybe they believe that they are having some hallucinations, right? Well, I don't really know that I am equipped to help that person, but I ain't going to turn them away, right? What that conversation is going to sound like is, you know what? Let's set up an intake. Come in. Let's talk. I'll see if I can figure out what might be going on or help you figure out what might be going on. If it's not something I can help you with, then I will help you find the right person, right? That's where referrals come in. That's where, hey, here's a list of people you need to call, or here's the first place you need to go, right? And then if that person gets in my office and they're severe enough, well, I have courses of action that I can follow to make sure that that person gets treatment. So that's the way it should work.
Yes, like I say, if you're lucky enough to find a Jamie, but
There's actually
well, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
I know what you mean.
But like, if you're maybe one of the biggest things you do to help somebody is that just understand that the system is complicated, and you may have to try 10 different times, but like you're not failing.
Nope.
You know, you may be doing the very thing that person needs that they can't do for themselves. So you will find the right person and the right whatever, and each, it's kind of like a, hunting for the lost ark, right? You find this clue and that clue, and then you get to the right place. But once you get that person to the right place and get them the right help, it's magic.
It is.
It's magic. So that may be one of the biggest things you can do for somebody is just do the clerical, maybe if somebody is burnt out or dealing with ADHD, you know what? They're not going to be able to keep up with the appointment.
Nope.
They're not going to be able to get there at 9:30 because, there are 15 things going on in their head that morning.
Or the depressed person don't want to get out of bed and go.
Right. You may have to drag them out.
Yep.
I mean, but like.
And so maybe that's another big takeaway from today is watching for the behaviors that are abnormal to that individual, right? Being late to appointments, missing lunch dates, not returning phone calls in a timely manner. If you got somebody that is punctual and all of a sudden they're starting to be 5 minutes late and then 10 minutes late and then maybe they're 30 minutes late or they just don't show up at all, that's probably a big clue. I need to check in on so-and-so.
Oh, that's not like them.
It's not like them. That's your phrase right there. Yeah. Out of character for him or her. And what you know about them.
Yep. So, anyway, maybe you can help the hurting.
That's the hope.
And then if nothing else, like I say, if it's you someday that needs the help, you can have a greater appreciation. For the process. So, all right. Well, I think we're about out of time. Any other closing thoughts?
No. I mean, it all starts with one phone call.
Yep.
So.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next time. Peace, love, and chicken grease.